Okay, let's get started with the meeting. 5 o'clock. Call to order. Pledge of Allegiance.
Correct?
Yep.
By Councilmember
Ramirez, thank you.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, report on posting of the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. The agenda for this meeting was posted on Friday, February 21st at 11:30 a.m.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bracco?
Here.
Councilmember Fugazi?
Here.
Councilmember Marks?
Here.
Councilmember Hilton?
Here.
Councilmember Ramirez?
Here.
Councilmember Klein?
Here.
Mayor Bozo?
Here.
Board President Fayak?
Here.
Board Vice President Paisino?
Here.
Board Member Del Bono?
Here.
Board Member Marino?
Here.
Board Member Nelson?
Here.
And Board Member Yee Baker.
I'm here, but I'm not Yee Baker.
Oh,
I'm
I'm sorry. That's what she gave me.
Okay, that's fine. Yee Baker is, I think, is on her way. Yeah, she is on her way.
Okay.
All right.
Moving on.
Thank you. Sorry about that error. Okay, we're going to move right into public comment. We have some public comment.
We do. We have 3 people who wish to speak. Heather Beard, to be followed by Andrea Hightower, and then Anna Mendoza. Heather, if you'll come up to the microphone, you each have 3 minutes.
Hello, this is my first time ever being here, and I just wanted to introduce myself. So this is in regards to El Roble Park and School, so just kind of get you up to speed with that. So my name is Heather Beard, and I live by El Roble Park. I've lived here for 15 years, and the park has been a huge asset to our community. A park brings people together. Our daughters have played lacrosse, ran the fields, used the backstops, flown kites here for years. And now the park is very limited. I understand the fence is here. The fence is here to stay. But a compromise would be really nice. The field is not used at nights or on weekends, and there are many different solutions. I feel that we should be looking at different solutions so that this field could be more open to the community. One solution could be an electronic lock on a time clock that could be onto one of the fences. This solution is being used for the city of Palo Alto, and this is a successful solution. This will not be involving any manpower. Once it's involved, it can be set up on a time clock so that the gate can be open nights and weekends, and the fields and these backstops, and the community can go ahead and use it. Some other improvements to the park would be nice to have usable tennis courts. Right now, the tennis courts have many cracks in them, and it's a liability. Somebody's going to twist their ankle and get hurt. The tennis courts need a lot of love and work. Also, a circular pathway. Because of these fences that went up, there is no circular pathway. And it would be very nice to have a circular pathway. There's no way to walk it all around in the park. There's kind of a funky, short fence. And you cannot even walk the perimeter of the tennis courts. The way the fences are cut, you have to walk over It's a very grassy area, and I believe in health for our community and for our children and for the residents, and that this is a community park and a way of bringing people together to get out and get exercise and not have to buy health clubs, and that we can restore our parks to a more usable space. So please help us to restore our neighborhood park and allow access to the public in our neighborhoods. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions or no? No questions or
Our
anything?
next speaker is Andrea Hightower,
Thank
to be
you.
followed by Anna Mendoza.
Andrea Hightower, and I'm going to be reading a statement from my daughter. My name is Ariela Basha Hightower. I graduated from Gilroy High School in 2017. I was born the day after the Columbine shootings. My mom has told me about watching the news in the hospital, concerned about the world she was bringing me into. I went to school with and worked with the 2019 Gilroy Garlic Festival shooter. Since being interviewed by the FBI, I have experienced difficulty in building trust in new relationships. Many have told me that my acts of kindness towards Santino probably prevented the tragedy from occurring sooner. I am shocked to hear that safety plans have not been upgraded since 2019. During my time at South Valley and Gilroy High, I often watched kids with disabilities bullied and harassed with no intervention from administration. I was disciplined when I intervened. In recent years, I was heartbroken to watch my sister with autism and other Gilroy Unified School District students with severe disabilities be sent on a 3-hour bus ride to deplorable conditions. I'm hearing that Gilroy Unified students being bullied based on their race with no response from administration. All kids have the right to go to school in their communities and do so without fear. Both the city and the district have a responsibility to develop plans of prevention, inclusion, and acceptance, and include all students and parents involved. Proactive before reactive. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Anna Mendoza.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm here as a parent. A few years ago, my son was a victim of bullying at school. He was called racist name, you dirty skin, wet bag, pushed around. They told him I was going to rape you as soon as I get you to the restroom. We followed protocol. As a parent volunteer for the district for many years, father and I went to the school. We talked to the teachers. We talked to the principal, and no action was taken. Couple of weeks, we were at the board meeting where they stated that we have high technology about video footage, and they could hear whatever they spoke. We requested that. We talked to the school, and nothing was given. A few days, my son, before this incident happened, my son was told, I'm going to bring a gun, and I'm going to shoot you, and I'm going to throw you over the bushes. He got a couple of altercations with this kid, and nothing happened. Then my son I don't know what happened to him, and this is very personal. He went to his dad's house, got a BB gun that he had, and he brought it to school. After all this we went through, we went and followed protocol, we talked to the teachers, and nothing happened. He was arrested at my home, taken to jail, and that was the worst feeling ever. We were able to fire with Lacey. He was released the same night because they violated his rights. So as a parent, this continued. He went to Solorzano, teacher, now this is a student, teacher, same teacher that he was being harassed by, calling me on my phone, telling me that he was using drugs. The same teacher threw a keys at another student's face, so I believe she got fired. We advocated. So it's been a fight between the bullying and the harassment and also with the school district. So today, I come to you and I ask you to please help us. Help us update the safety plan. We worked together with a lot of agencies. I hope you guys recall this. 2 years ago, we worked for 4 months to update this. And it was just thrown in the trash. It's not important. So I speak on behalf of my son and on behalf of every kid. Just a couple of weeks at Gilroy High School, he experienced the same thing with harassment based on race with his friends. The principal came over and said, next time, ask your teacher. That was not the right way to take care of it.
No further speakers.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 2. Topic is Gilroy Unified School District enrollment update and impacts on Gilroy Unified School District budget.
Good evening, board. Good evening, council. Is this on? Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Good evening. Can everybody hear me? Oh,
Back
goodness.
there, they can't.
Okay.
There you go.
If we can put up the volume, that'd be helpful. I'll try to project a little bit, but that's not my strength, and I don't want to feel like I'm yelling at everybody. Thank you, Jimmy. Good evening, board. Good evening, superintendent, mayor, council members. I'm Alvaro Mesa, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services for Gilroy Unified School District. The topics I'll be covering today are obviously the birth trends in the nation. I always like to talk about the nation, what's happening in the United States, because we have a global perspective, a phenomenon of really the source of declining enrollment is the decline of birth rates throughout the nation. We, of course, will get to the Gilroy-specific data, how that impacts enrollment, because our public school financing system for GUSD heavily relies on enrollment and attendance. And then I'll get into the 2 types of districts in California, and then review our summary of revenues and expenditures. This is what I was referring to in terms of the national trends. So from 22 to 23, we experienced well over a 2% decrease in number of births. Fertility is also experiencing a 2.5% drop in the same span. This is, of course, nationwide data. This is important to recognize because 4 years later and 5 years later, those become our kinders and our transitional kindergartner students. Historical birth data in our zip code, so this is specific to the 95020 Gilroy zip code. You can see that the peak enrollment took place in 2006. Back then, 5 years later, that would have meant a kinder cohort class in Gilroy Unified of over 800 students. So roughly about 80%, if you will, attrition, if you will, from births to kinder. But now we're looking at truly still historically low numbers at 756 births back in 2023. That would mean, a class of 500, 600 or so coming in 5 years later. So that we're still at a historically low level. I'm pointing this out because we're obviously fewer births lead to fewer children in our system. This is specific to Gilroy, of course. But not specific to Gilroy is other regions in California. And so we look at this projection going to 2031. So the way you read this chart is the bars are the number, sheer magnitude number of projected decline. It's school-age children. So obviously when you look at California, that is the aggregate total, expected to drop by about 523,000 school-age children by 2031. But then the relative percentage from 2020 all the way to 2031, so 6 years from now, we expect to see an almost 9% drop in that span of a little over a decade. When I looked at our projections and our Gilroy-specific data, when you look at the Santa Clara drop of almost 16%, that's almost exactly the number that we are anticipating at Gilroy Unified to experience 6 years from now. So the data trends on the statewide trends, but also our unique Gilroy Unified specific data is also pointing to a 16% drop of school-age children by the time we get to 2031, so 6 years from now. I'd like to thank the city and the city staff for working with our demographers. We routinely work with your planning department to figure out, what projects are in the pipeline, what the occupancy of those various residential developments are. Obviously, the student generation is really of key interest for us. So the generation of students will depend on the dwelling type. So multifamily dwelling will differ from a single-family detached dwelling. So essentially, what we look at is all the way to 2034, and you can see the data. Based on the expected occupancy rates, we have our total projected student generation for various developments. So this coming year, we're looking at a total of 326 students in the various developments that we anticipate will be occupied by then. Geographically, I think your folks know better this data than I do, but geographically, this is where the growth regions are that our demographers have incorporated in. So not only do we look at, obviously, new births coming in, expected birth rates, et cetera, but also the new developments, right? Santa Teresa Corridor, Glen Loma Ranch is still developing, still building houses out there, so that's also on the map. But there's other developments other than Glen Loma Ranch, of course. So our demographers incorporate that planning into our projections as well. This is a short history of 2013, so the last a little over a decade or so. We hit our peak again in 2016-17. So remember, the birth rate peaked at 2006. 10 years later, we hit our peak of Gilroy Unified, and that makes sense. 10 years later, that means more of them in our system, more of them peaking out, and that by 2016, 10 years later, after you hit the peak of birth rates, that's when we peaked out on enrollment. And it more or less historically been a downward trend since then. This past year, we declined just over 60 or so. We're projecting to be a total enrollment of 10,100 for next year, continuing to decline. If I had the projections in here all the way through 2034, total enrollment will be about 8,300. So we're expected to have a sustained decline in enrollment for years to come. That's why the board has an annual topic of discussion about school closures, because unlike other public school agencies that are basic aid, and I'll get into that in a minute, we get funded on our average daily attendance. So every student we have obviously matters for a number of reasons. One meaning funding as well. So the projection, here it is, 2034, 8,378. That's the very last circle number in red that we're projecting all the way to 2034. With next year's projections, and these are fall projections, October, of 10,100. By grade level, I think this is the really interesting point of this chart. By grade level, if you can just look at the dashed column, 2025, you can see that the lower cohorts, kinder, first, second, etc., they're all 500, 600. And then when you get into middle school, you get into the 700 range. And then you get to high school, they're the upper 800s. There is no cohort anymore of 1,000 students. That happened a couple of years ago. So naturally what that tells you is as kids age out, our footprint's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's what our demographics and our data suggest as well. Naturally, I'd be remiss if I didn't include this one slide. For the parents, of course, I'm a parent too. The parents want to know, well, how big is my school? What do I expect for next year? This shows you the projection of each site, again, totaling to 10,100 in total enrollment. The increase or decrease column is, obviously the change from this current year. This is what I was alluding to earlier when I said some schools in California are basic aid districts. Basic aid is almost exactly what it doesn't sound like. Basic aid means wealthy districts that are fully funded by property taxes, so much that they have perhaps even $20 million beyond the mathematical formula that's represented by the dashed line. So in essence, the dashed line represents an allocation formula. A max, if you will. For Gilroy Unified, that's $130 million. So if you think of $130 million representing the dashed line, if we were basic aid district, that would mean that every property in Gilroy, in our boundary, would generate more than double the property taxes that it generates, so much that the state wouldn't really need to provide state aid to Gilroy Unified. It would be completely funded by local property taxes, and we would maintain complete control of that. The key in all this is that it's disconnected from enrollment. It's property taxes, period. So when enrollment, as I pointed out, in California, there's birth rate declines, there's declining enrollment throughout most of the regions in California. Basic aid districts like Santa Clara actually maintain their revenue, and they can cut costs if they choose to. Obviously, what most of them do is maintain services to students, but they don't have to cut costs because it's disconnected from enrollment. Gilroy Unified is on the left side, so we're actually funded on average daily attendance, which is about 95% of enrollment. So the state has to fund about $40-50 million every single year to Gilroy Unified to get to that $130 million allocation. Otherwise, we can't pay our bills. That's why it's so relevant for districts like Gilroy Unified to pay attention to enrollment, to attendance, because it directly impacts our funding. It is not disconnected like in Santa Clara Unified. This is basically our snapshot of what I was just referring to, our allocation. So this is the dashed line I was referring to. This is $130 million. In essence, we have a higher need, of course, for needs of services. So the concentration in supplemental, almost $17.6 million there. They're directly servicing students with special needs, not special needs, but English language learners, foster youth, and low-income family students. Those $17.5 million are specifically essentially saying, look, these are districts with additional needs. The state provides additional resources recognizing that need, and everybody else, basically we have the base grant funding by grade level that varies. There's also little adjustments at the very top for transportation, which is effectively being frozen, only being augmented by the cost of living increase, which this year was a total of 1% for that. And now we're getting to the bigger picture. So for that $130 million, we have a total of state, federal, local sources of $178 million this current year. Most of it, of course, which is through the local control funding formula, that's $130 million of that. Property taxes, there's that 36% of $178 million. Prop 30 was a border initiative that passed, I think, in 2016. It brings in about $10 billion at the state level, and it's set to expire in 2030. So we got to look for that. Total expenditures, $215. So if our revenues are $178, and our expenditures are $215, we got a $37 million problem, right? We have $30 million of carryover in restricted state and federal funds, and about $6 million of restricted, unrestricted carryover in the general fund. The true deficit spending in the general fund is roughly about $1.3 million, $1.5 million. So it's not $37 million, but we do have to dip into the reserves. As normal districts in declining enrollment do, and then we have 3 years to make those corrections, of course, because we're funded on the prior 3-year for average declining enrollment. If you set aside, so this is the total general fund, state, federal, local sources. If I just narrow in on what we call the operational general fund, think of how we pay our, to keep the lights on, pay our custodials, our operational resources and expenditures. If I just zoom in on that portion of the general fund and exclude carryover, that's almost the $6 million that you see carryover. So what I'm trying to show here is what is our ongoing expenses to our ongoing revenues in terms of what we can commit to on an ongoing basis and what do we spend that ongoing dollar on. 88 cents on every dollar is spent on staff, basically. This is what that tells you. 88 cents out of every dollar that's ongoing, it's already being spent on staff, salary and benefits. That's a high number, but it's not unusual for a school district because we deliver our services through our people, our talented teachers and classified staff. So that's a number that this is a budget pie chart, but it's also on my actuals. If you look at the actual expenditures for last year, when the books were closed, when it was all said and done, so there's no budget at that point, it's actuals. It was 88% as well. So the trend continues to be 88% of that. This is not meant to be like line item by line item description. All this says is that we have about $17 million of one-time money that is set to sunset at some point, and we have a plan for the carryover of $17 million. Half of that is the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, which we have a 3-year plan. This provides social, emotional support for students, additional counselors, mental support services, etc. And we had a 3-year plan rollout to spend that money. But the point is we have one-time money on services that it will be expiring and soon in a couple more years. So, any questions?
Any questions? Any of us? All right, Alvaro, thank you very much. Very detailed. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to item number 3. It's a community development activities from City of Gilroy Community Development Director Sharon Goy.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and trustees of the Gilroy Unified School District Board, and members of the community. I welcome you here today, and we're going to give you a highlight of our development projects. This last calendar year in 2024, we issued about 177 building permits for residential units. And the year before was 188. And looking at the last 6 years, we average about 215 residential dwelling unit permits per year. So looking at this calendar year 2025, we're looking at probably about the same, around 180 to 200. And two notable, so this is just the highlight. So 2 notable residential projects completed last year. There's 29 single-family homes at Current Cottages, and a development that's at the corner of Hecker Pass and Santa Teresa. It's 120 units of a affordable apartment complex. And there's also quite a number of units under construction, several different neighborhoods in the Glen Loma Ranch by different developers. Lennar Homes is also building, this is east of the golf course on Hecker Pass. And Warmington Homes is building 19 new single-family homes just right here at the corner of 6th Street and Prince Valley. And we have various projects that's also under review at different stages, whether it's through the planning application stage or the building permit stage. There's 8 single-family homes under building permit review. Gilroy Family Apartments, that's by the Rome developers. That's a 94-unit affordable apartment complex on Monterey, south of 10th. That has completed the architectural and site permit process, and it's undergoing the building permit plan review process as well. And Renfu Villa, this 54 single-family residential lot development at Miller and Santa Teresa. The tentative map application is actually coming to council tonight, as well as the zoning amendment. So if you stay for the council meeting, you'll see this project coming forward. And then the 2 bullet points below that, there are just several more neighborhoods at the Glen Loma Ranch that's going to be built out. There's Town Center Flex and the 3 neighborhoods over there, also Cannon Creek, Rocky Knoll, and Malvesia 2. We also have 42 townhomes that's under review. There's a tentative map application and an architectural and site review also. And here's a highlight of some of the developments that was completed in 2024 in downtown. I won't go through each one, but hopefully you've visited many of those places already. We got the Gilroy Bowl, this parking lot at 4th and Monterey, and a couple of restaurants and alcohol places. And we've got Camino Coffee also at the corner of Monterey and 7th Street. And several restaurants also under construction. There's an Italian restaurant that's under construction, close to 3,000 square feet, tenant improvement. And the food court that's south of the archery store. There's going to be 4 commercial kitchens there, so that's also in the works. And several applications are under review. Just to highlight, there's a Portuguese restaurant that's under building permit review. And the Psycho Donuts and Pizza Box tenant improvement. We actually didn't hear from the applicant for some months, but they have re-engaged with us at the end of last year. So this application most likely will be also moving forward. And then here now is some highlights of the various commercial and industrial developments just across the city. Here's a list of notable accomplishments this last year. Hopefully you've shopped at some of these places. We've got shopping places and all kinds of different restaurants. So hopefully you've eaten at some of these places as well. We also had a large office tenant improvement for the DMV field office on Outer Mall Parkway. And Plaza Allium, that's the new shopping center that's being developed at 10th Street and Chestnut. So 2 buildings that were completed and also opened and have been thriving. That's a Starbucks and Chick-fil-A. And 2 large commercial industrial buildings were also completed. They're the shell buildings that's almost 200,000 square feet each on Cameron Boulevard. And here's a highlight of some of the projects across town that's under construction and under review. Floor and Decor, this is a tenant improvement for a specialty retailer of flooring and accessories that's going into the old Walmart place. That's on Royal Circle. It's in construction. It's almost done with the construction, so nearing completion. There's a self-storage on Gilman Road. You might have seen that construction happening over there, multi-building storage facility, totaling almost 58,000 square feet. We're going to have more restaurants too. This Meat Stew restaurant, it's going to the old Chevy's location. And that's under construction also. Dutch Bros Coffee, the review actually has been completed, and the developer is doing some value engineering. So hopefully this calendar year we'll see something moving forward. And 2 pretty large industrial buildings too. The shell buildings have been complete on Rens Lane, and they just haven't pulled the building permit yet. And I mentioned the Plaza Allium, that shopping center, you see a lot of activity going on there. So 3 more buildings have been in the works, different stages of the building permit plan review. We have a hotel, a convenience store, and a car wash. There's also another seafood restaurant that's going to be at Rance Lane. That's the old Chili's restaurant. So a tenant improvement is under review. And I mentioned earlier 2 large shell buildings on Cameron Boulevard. That's almost 200,000 square feet each. The shell building's been completed, and now it's the tenant improvement they've submitted for building permit review. And we have another storage that's happening. That's going to take place at Las Animas Avenue. The Gilroy Data Center on Camino Arroyo Drive. That is going through the environmental review process, and it's also going through building permit review at the same time. Arco Gas Station, Travel Park Circle, that's almost complete. Staff is gathering the different conditions of approvals from various departments and divisions, and we'll be able to issue the approval pretty soon. And Heatwave has 3 industrial buildings on a vacant site. So they're going through the environmental review process. Lock Tech, that is a furniture and home improvement product distributor. And you can see the square footage is pretty large, 3 buildings totaling over 440,000 square feet. And that is also in the review stage under the architectural and site permit application. And we also have something on Leavesley. This is the Santa Clara Family Health Plan Resource Center that's doing some exterior modifications and site improvements. And this application is also under review. And as I mentioned, these are just some highlights. There's a lot going on, as you can see. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank our team in the Community Development Department, our building team, planning team, and fire prevention team who've been working really, really hard to assist the applicants and make these projects happen. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Any questions for Sharon? Michelle?
Hi.
Hi.
Psycho Donuts? Anybody? Anybody?
They're good.
They're good?
It's a chain.
But why? Why Psycho?
That was the application that
Well, I know,
we
but-
received.
It's a chain. It's a chain.
Okay, I need to get out more, I guess. The Gilroy data center, is that the Amazon thing?
Yes.
When is the review expected to be completed?
Hopefully later this year, because they've been making some changes. So that's why the environmental review has, been getting some modifications.
I haven't
Of the last
been
2
attending
years.
the city council meetings, but I, spoke about the Amazon building before. Have they downsized it, or what modifications are they making? You say they're making some modifications. What are those?
It's more to do with the system that's supporting the infrastructure of the to support the building, not necessarily the building size or anything like that. So,
Also, I think you were referring to the one on Camino Arroyo and Pacheco Pass, which was going to be the distribution center. That's not this. This is the one that's actually located right by GUSD on Camino Arroyo that way, and it's purely a data center.
Even though it's not on here, what is the status of the distribution center? Is that it's not on the
I
agenda?
don't think
but-
there's no application for the site.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not so much a question, but just a comment. I really appreciate this update. It's exciting to see everything that's coming into Gilroy or has already come into Gilroy, and especially a lot of the work that is done in downtown Gilroy on Monterey Road. It just makes a difference when you have children who can walk to go get coffee or enjoy the park, and it really adds to our community. And so I just want to thank you for all this work. It's just really exciting to see. So thank you.
Yeah, I did have a couple of questions regarding the food court with the 4 commercial kitchens. Are you opening that up to like the home cooks and they can rent space there, or what is the concept for that?
That'll be up to the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, we're kind of just reviewing the plans in terms of configurations and code compliance.
And then with all of these new buildings, are there companies moving in, and do you have an idea of how is this going to generate jobs for the community?
Yeah, we believe so. Many of these buildings that you see, if there are new buildings, like I mentioned, one of the project on Cameron Boulevard, it's 2 really large buildings, and we have some tenant improvement applications from the applicant. Yeah.
And do you happen to have any idea of how many jobs that all these new builds will create for the community?
Not a total, but just the example I gave you. We know one of those 2 buildings that's almost 200,000 square feet. The applicant has indicated it will be probably bringing about 100 jobs for the tenant that they're looking at. So, yeah, we're really excited about that.
And is there an agreement with these companies that are moving in that, they have a certain percentage of jobs that are given to Gilroy residents, or is that any consideration?
Yeah, I think that's more up to each company, and then possibly Victoria after me can speak about that on the economic development aspect of it.
Thank you.
It wasn't reflected on this presentation, but I'm curious when I read an article several years ago when my family was getting ready to move here from Morgan Hill, and it was an article about some big outdoor kind of adventure park right outside of the Gilroy Gardens with like a zip line. Just wondering if that plan has just been abandoned, or I just haven't heard anything, and I was just curious.
Yes, I think Victoria is going to cover that in her presentation
okay,
next.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Sharon. Moving on to item number 4, economic development activities. Victoria Valencia, Economic Director Manager.
One of those.
Sorry.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, council members, school board trustees, and members of the public. My name is Victoria Valencia. I'm the Economic Development Manager here at the City of Gilroy. And I'm here to provide you with several economic development updates. I'll start with a couple before I get into my presentation. When a business comes here, typically my role and other city staff, we connect these businesses with our local partners. So the Gilroy Chamber of Commerce, Visit Gilroy, Downtown Business Association. We really try to get them ingrained in the community right off the bat. We've been successful at doing this with Amazon Web Services. They've been very active, and they participate in Rock the Mock and other opportunities. They also had a training held out at Gavilan College. It was a 2-day fiber training. That was, I believe, 2023. So that's where we try to get in. As the government, we can't tell people who they can hire. So we just work through that with our partners. The Adventure Park we'll get to in a little while. So I'm going to start off with our 3 key initiatives that were set by the council back in 2019. In 2019, the City Council declared Gilroy a recreation destination following the recommendations by the Gilroy Economic Development Partnership. This included our Recreation Gateway area, Gilroy Ice Center, and Gourmet Alley revitalization. So the Recreation Gateway area is 536 acres owned by the City of Gilroy, which includes Gilroy Gardens along Hecker Pass Highway. And Council's goal for this site is to ensure it is used for viable tourist attracting projects. There was an application for the Adventure Park. There was another application that came forward. Neither of those moved forward, and so the Council is still looking at projects and making sure that they fit with this vision. So the update is no real update, unfortunately. Next is the Gilroy Ice Center. This is what it's proposed to look like. The initial discussions began back in 2019. There you go. Ooh, The initial discussions began back in 2019. The term sheet was approved by Council in June 2022 for a 100,000 square foot facility with 2 NHL-sized ice rinks, approximately 387 parking spaces, after-school programs, including free admission for Gilroy students. Gilroy voters approved the 2022 charter amendment for the design-build process, and the design was completed and presented to Council in May 2024. The city is currently undergoing infrastructure improvements to support the project, and the next step is to prepare for construction bid. This project will be paid for by Shark Sports and Entertainment through a bond issued by the city. All right, next is our Gourmet Alley project. Did anyone of you visit downtown anytime from April to November of last year? You may have noticed there was a lot going on in those back parking lots. The city received a grant, a $3.9 million infrastructure grant to improve the alleyways in downtown. Prior to this grant starting, you may recall that there were dumpsters in the alleyway. There was graffiti. It just wasn't a very nice place to go to. So this grant helped to clean that area up. This project added lighting, public seating, public trash receptacles, shared trash enclosures to the 3 blocks of the core downtown, which we consider 4th to 7th Street. Leading up to the project, the city resurfaced and restriped Railroad Alley, designated a green space as a pop-up park, and added an additional parking lot, adding 144 spaces to downtown. The city also conditionally approved a parking lot at the corner of 4th and Monterey, which added 54 additional spaces. Lighting along the alley and in the parking lots is anticipated to be complete by the end of March of this year. All right, and then going off of what Director Goey said, there's a lot happening in downtown Gilroy. Here are some pictures of some spaces that had been vacant for a little while. We had Porcella's Music, that's the new Savvy's Downtown Suites. We have the Gilroy Bowl renovation that happened, and then we also have the Clove Art Complex which went into the old Milia's building. So we've had 15 businesses that we've added in the last year, and more to come. And some upcoming economic development projects. There are several learning and growth opportunities for entrepreneurs and small business owners that we're focusing on. In December, we hosted a small business tax workshop in Spanish, and then we do have an upcoming sidewalk vendor workshop, which will be in English and Spanish, hosted on March 22nd. More information will come out soon about that one. Well, we're collaborating with the department, DEH, and the Retail Food Advisory Council on that. So the goal is just to get more people educated on what the city process is and make sure that they can get through the project or through the process successfully. We are also working on a few ordinance updates to further expand economic opportunities. One is our special events ordinance, and the other is a mobile food vendor ordinance, which will focus on food trucks. Lastly, we are working on updates to the Economic Development Strategic Plan and the Downtown Strategic Plan. So more information will be coming on those soon. And that concludes my report. Thank you so much.
Any questions for Victoria?
I do. Sure. So one of the things that I recognize in going downtown is that there seems to be a lot of newer beer, alcohol-related establishments, which I think it's great. You know, we might have some really great, a lot of people who are into beer and wine connoisseurs. At the same time, however, I don't see a lot of attractions for our children and for families, right? So even a lot of restaurant establishments are either really fast food, lots of Starbucks, which, I don't mind these kinds of establishments. But I'm just curious, are there more plans to add more attractive establishments that would invite more families with young children, teenagers? I haven't yet tried out that Savvy Sweets place, which I'm really excited about, but I just don't see a draw of that in the downtown area, especially when every time I go down there, I'm like, oh, here's another tap room. Okay, well, that's not a place that my family would essentially go. So I'm just curious, kind of maybe the planning around all of these it just seems like they're like every other building. It's like, what is this become? And I've read some of those community forums, and there seems to be a sentiment like, okay, do we really need another tap room? So I'm just curious what the mindset and some of the discussions that were around, and why do we have to have? I think I just saw here there was 5 new establishments related to alcohol.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Let's see, just like we're not able to tell businesses who they can employ, we can't tell a property owner necessarily who they can rent to, who they can lease space to. In these downtown strategic plans, we can provide some guidance. We could provide with community input what we think would go best, but ultimately it's the property owner that does decide that. I will say, though, that the city has made an effort with the dedication of the pop-up park and the revitalization of Gourmet Alley to make our downtown a more walkable, more family-oriented space. And we've seen Savvy Sweets come in and Camino Coffee. We've seen the bowling alley revitalized. So I think we're at the start, and we're creating that space so businesses like the ones you'd like to see there will want to come to downtown Gilroy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for your report. And again, it's really exciting to see everything that's happening downtown. Where would one find maybe a list of events that would happen in Gourmet Alley? Because I know the weather's getting better. I'm getting excited to see like food trucks that are coming or events that might be happening. Where would we find that information?
Sure. So the events that are currently held in downtown are hosted by various organizations. The Downtown Association is one of them. The Chamber of Commerce puts on another, and other organizations. La Ofrenda has a great event in November. Visit Gilroy is probably going to be the best site. They keep a pretty comprehensive list of any community event. So visit Gilroy.com. They have a new website that just launched. Check it out. Very user-friendly and available in several different languages. Not a promotion.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're in the business of, educating students, and one of our key initiatives in the next couple of years is CTE Pathways. So I would love to see a closer working relationship between GUSD and the city, where when these companies, these larger companies come in, that we can have conversations with them in terms of, workforce readiness programs, so that our students, not all of them are going to go to college, right? They might go to Gavilan, but they need to have a good, high, paying job, not necessarily super high, but livable wage jobs. So I would love to see something like that flourish, because we know our kids, there's not a lot of things for our kids to do here to keep them out of trouble. And I believe you can, as part of the negotiation process in terms of allowing a company here for permitting and all that stuff, you can say, let's say 10%, and negotiate 10% of the jobs that you're going to generate, you're going to give first right of refusal to Gilroy residents. I think that is a good plan to, again, benefit this community, the people that are already living in this community, versus other people that are commuting into it.
Thank you.
I have a question, but I think it might be a stupid question.
No.
Okay,
No.
all right, good. Is the Gilroy Unified School District a member of the chamber?
Yes.
We are? Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
That was not a stupid question. Okay, thank you, Victoria. Moving on to number 5, school resource officers. I believe it will be Gilroy Police Department, Captain Juan Rocha.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, school board members, and members of the public. Thank you for allowing me tonight to provide a quick update on our school resource officer program. We currently have 2 SROs assigned to Gilroy Unified Schools. Officer Estela Rocha, her primary high school is Gilroy High School. She actually started as one of our dispatchers over 10 years ago. She's bilingual, and she's been an SRO since August of 2024. Our other SRO is Officer Dustin Odell, and he is assigned to Christopher High School. He's been an SRO since 2022, and he's been an officer for over 11 years now. And most recently, he was joined by his new partner, Maui. Our council approved a therapy dog, which was assigned to Officer Odell. Maui is a 1-year-old Australian Shepherd, and as you can imagine, he was an instant hit with the students at the different schools. So in order to provide coverage 5 days a week at the different schools, one of the SROs works Monday through Thursday, and the second SRO works Tuesday through Friday. Currently, GUSD and the City of Gilroy are year to year on the MOU agreement for the SRO program. And renewal of the MOU is coming up, but usually the city will wait for GUSD to approve the MOU on their end. When we do take the MOU to our City Council for approval, we do have a full PowerPoint presentation with data reflecting contacts between the SROs and the students, and a lot more detail in our presentation. So with that, if anyone has any questions about our SRO program.
Any questions? Jennifer?
Yes. We have the job description for the SRO program, and I'm curious who evaluates the SROs, and what evaluation data or metrics do you use to support you in that evaluation?
So we do have internal evaluation appraisals for employees, which is what we use to evaluate the employees. They're done on an annual basis, and a sergeant is directly supervising the 2 SROs, and the SRO program falls under my division, which is the Field Operations Division.
And for Gilroy Unified, we have asked for and received information based on surveys of staff and parents and students. The SROs bring us data, how many kids they've seen, what kinds of events, and that's the information we use on an annual basis. And I know in the past the city has wanted to do a multi-year. As a trustee, I want to know from our community on an annual basis whether the SROs are meeting everybody's expectations. It has been mentioned by some family members and some community members that is this a good use of funds? So far, our evaluations and our surveys have said yes, but I don't want, personally, as a trustee, I don't want to go out more than 1 year to make that determination. I prefer to do a year-to-year, and I know that might not be advantageous for the city, but I think we need to know on an annual basis how the SROs are working with our kids and our families. So, and I appreciate all the information that the SROs are now keeping. We've had SROs in Gilroy Unified for probably 40 years. We never asked kids, staff, or families, hey, what do you think of this program, until about 4 or 5 years ago, which is really pretty astounding. The city didn't ask, we didn't ask, and it was just business as usual. So until we get that information, I think it's critical that we know how it's going on an annual basis. So thank you, and I appreciate the work that the SROs are doing. It's a completely different program now than, back 20 years ago when I was an administrator. So thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to say I definitely appreciate the relationship that the city and GOSD has. Number one, having our superintendent on the interview panel for SRO officers has made a huge difference. For us, our MOU tightening what we expect from what the expectations from our SROs is really great. I also really appreciate that the SROs are keeping track of the interactions. And from the last report, I was really happy to see that the SROs were utilizing their time more for prevention efforts versus like citations. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm going to try to balance out what somebody thinks is a dumb question between both sides, but it just occurred to me, what do the SROs do when school's not in session, like in summer and in the winter breaks and whatnot, spring breaks?
So winter break's pretty short. It's only about a week or two. During that time, they will assist patrol, the different patrol teams, as due to time off or vacations or sick calls. Summertime, there is summer school still going on at the schools. So they do help out with the summer school, plus they assist patrol during the summertime.
Sorry. When I look at the MOU and the job description and the purpose of the SROs, the purposes that are listed here are really vague, and so I think it would be important to really hone in on what we're really trying to achieve with this program because, and first I just need you to understand, I'm going to speak now about why I don't think we need 2 SROs, but I value our police department very much. Our school community resource officers are wonderful people, but I'm also looking at where I think the best use of our dollars might go, and I believe our dollars would be best spent with prevention. We spend, our contribution, it says, is $310,000 from the school district to fund the SRO program with 2 school community resource officers. And we can't, in my opinion, we can't afford it. And I know the police department probably feels the same way. Prevention really is the best use of, our time and energy. And in my opinion, the school community resource program really supports us in a tier 3, right? A crisis management, sometimes prevention, but those dollars could be spent in a way that's really systemic in providing prevention across the board for our schools. So I guess one question I do have is when our SROs are working with their schools, because they have the two high schools, well, they have 4 high schools, but they have 2 comprehensive high schools and the feeder schools into those high schools. How are our SROs, our school community resource officers, working within the systems of those schools? Like, for example, are they on the school climate team for those schools? Are they on the cost team, the coordination of services team, the MST team, the multi-service team for those schools? Are they integrated within the school teams?
I don't believe they're integrated, but they respond on when they're needed, when they're called upon. They're not, being proactive. Most other contacts are, just social contacts, breaking the ice with kids, just being on the campus and having a uniform in place.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for discussion about how the South County Youth Task Force could really play a more coordinated role in supporting with the prevention efforts, even more than they are, so that we can reduce our school community resource officer staffing from 2 to 1, is what I'm wondering.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're moving on to number 6 and 7. We can kind of combine these, but this is just right into city or Gilroy Unified School District news. If anybody has comments or questions, and maybe I'll start. I'll just ask a question to our city manager, Jimmy Forbes, like questions like that about these policies and financial agreements and joint use agreements with the school district. Is this something that we can ask staff to go back to? Is that?
Yes, I think it would depend on the actual topic. But for SROs, the city of Gilroy provides those SROs at the request of the school district. So any adjustments that would be wanted to be made, and that should be done at the GUSD level. Then you make the request to us. But for joint use agreements, give you an example of the fence that we've been talking about a little bit, things like that. Yeah, those are things that we as staff can go back and work at the staff level and see what's the options, and then go back to our individual boards. But again, the fences are the GUSD, so we would only probably be able to make a recommendation, but it's something we could work on.
Any further questions regarding these two topics for us? I mean, the 8th topic, again, is future agenda items.
I've got a couple to kind of build off what you were talking about. So I think we've identified kind of 2 other things between what all of us we're a brand new mixture of people, right? Brand new elected. So there's 2 other items that I'd like to add on here. One of them is to talk about joint use agreement updates. Maybe there's some best practices that we're missing out on, but that would give us the space over the next year for staff level to come together and any member of your board and our council to come together to have updates on that. And I'd like to see the South County Youth Task Force elevated. They do a lot of good work in our community between the policy team and the tech team, and it really brings together a wide range of school district and staffers. And I'd like to see that put on our agenda. So the same idea. We can have the space over the next year to be able to provide some updates on those.
And I'll add that a little bit. So in regards to joint use agreements, so far I know I've only really heard 2 topics, and that is fences and SROs. But I think it would be nice if we included in those joint use agreements is the idea of some cooperation between facility usage. I do know you talked about having a new group of people, which is great. We have a new active recreation commission, and they're interested in seeing how we can have some joint use agreements with some of the facilities with Gilroy Unified School District, so we can have some of those activities that you talked about for our kids that are a little bit more abundant and become the normal in our community again. And we do have a history of City of Gilroy and Gilroy Unified School District of having very strong joint use agreements in the past. So I'd like to see that added.
Yeah. One other thing I want to throw out is a plug for the Civic Center Master Plan. There's flyers around here for members of the public and for us to take back. There's plenty for you all to take back. And that's the same thing. We're looking for joint input, joint ways, There's a lot of really good nonprofits out there, but they just don't have the space. So whether it's using our facilities or your facilities, I know that would help them out a lot.
Go ahead.
I did have a question. As you know, one of the hot topics in our community is immigration enforcement. And I know that, Gilroy Unified School District, we put out a resolution to our families. We have on our website a list of resources. I'm just curious to know, are there any resources that the city is providing for that so that we can then let our families know, put it on our website, and share it out?
Yeah, why don't I go back to Captain Rocha on that? So at least start with that question, please.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Are there any services that the city is providing to the community on immigration services and to help them, like know your rights, information for our community so that, there's not this fear that's, really in the community right now?
So, the city and even the police department have been pretty active on social media and making our stance known that our job is not to enforce immigration laws or violations. Along with the South County Youth Task Force, we've done presentations out in the community, like Cafecito and San Isidro. Me and the mayor went to St. Mary's Church, where we spoke in front of a full church full of people. But really, we've made it pretty clear that our role here is not to enforce immigration laws.
Further questions?
That you made very clear, and thank you for sending that out. I read the press release and all of that, so that's great. But are there any other resources that people can actually use that doesn't necessarily have to be provided by the city, but maybe organizations that might work with the city, or even just on your website, here's a resource if you get into trouble. Here's a list of attorneys or nonprofit organizations that you can reach out to.
So we can't provide advice to the public on how to deal with immigration if they're stopped or potentially contacted. But if you go to our transparency page on our police department website, we do have our immigration policy available.
Further questions?
Not a question, but piggybacking on what City Council Member Hilton was talking about, utilizing the South County Youth Task Force in a joint way, because I think city's on it as policy level, Dr. Munchi's policy level. We're at policy level and tech team level, right? Dion and I were on it for a long time, right? So they're already there, and I see lots of opportunity to utilize that not only for facilities, but or SROs, but for the overall health and well-being of the youth in our community. So Mr. Meza said we had about 10,100 students in our district. That's approximately a fifth of the community in Gilroy, right, are in our school district. And so that's 20% of the people who live in Gilroy are in our schools. And I could also see us working around health and well-being, tobacco use, vaping prevention, suicide prevention, means restriction, all sorts of things that we could really collaborate on to just make sure that we have a healthier community. And we just have so many organizations. In this room alone, I'm seeing Rotary, Caras, Digital Nest, Gavilan College, and probably others that I'm missing that we could Catholic Charities, who are also probably even already on the Gilroy South County Youth Task Force, that we could be working together collectively to serve youth.
And you had also mentioned too, how the SROs are embedded into some of those organizations. So I've shown up to some of the tech team meetings, and most of the time both officers are there, listening and participating as well. So I think that helps.
Further questions or comments? Thank you, Captain Rocha. Yeah, so if there are no further questions or comments, before we go into our adjournment, I'll just make a little announcement. First of all, thank you very much, Gilroy Unified School District trustees and staff for coming today. It was a great meeting. I appreciate you guys coming. For the public, what we are going to do next is we're going to take an adjournment. This group here is going to come together really quick and take a picture. So if you could leave the center of the room here open, please, so that we can have a photo taken. And then we will take a 12-minute break. We'll come back at 6:20. Okay? Thank you. Adjourn. Push your chairs back. Yeah. So if you can pull your chairs back, and we'll crunch together. Thank you. Bring it in tight.
Okay, bring it in.
Push your chair back a little bit. Thank you.
We're going to be here.
Put your chair back. Yeah, we're gonna crunch together here.
Just tell us how much more.
Go sideways. Sideways.
Bring it in tight.
The two right here in the center. All the guys. Like that?
Closer, Michelle. You want the tall guys in the back?
We good?
I feel like a strip next to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Hi, how are you? I didn't get a chance to see you.
I know.
Kind of rushed this around. All right, let's rock and roll. Well, this is the first time we've had them back to back.
Oh, I know. It's hectic. It's crazy. We have a crazy meeting coming up.
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, they want you to be inside. Yeah, they don't project it. Yeah, no, it has to be in here. I'm going to rent the rest of it.
Get your food and go.
So, I'm going to take Diane.
Beth,
Okay.
Beth, you have to call Swaggit, right? You have to call Swaggit.
Hi, how are you?
No, I don't need to.
Oh.
I need to do it at the closed session. And what we're going to do is council's going to go back into the back to do the closed session.
Let me ask. Not quite yet. I won't tell your wife. That's right. Cheers. So there we go in there. So one more chip on it. So no, but Pledge of Allegiance and invocation, why don't we do all of them? Okay. So no roll call. Yeah, it should be roll call. I'm changing it up a little bit. We're going to go to the closed session. It's going to be very brief. Come back and start the meeting. We'll do that at 6:20. We'll talk to the people. Thanks, man. Hey, ho.
Test. Test.
but I wanted to give it back.
Terrence put Bailey's in his coffee. Okay, we are going to get started on the next meeting of the evening. If I can get your attention, please. I got a little explanation about how the meeting's going to work tonight. It's a little bit unconventional. So typically in a council meeting, we have a city council meeting. We take care of all the business, and oftentimes we go into a closed session, and that's at the end of the meeting when everybody leaves. Tonight, we are going to take roll, and we have a little bit of business in closed session at the very beginning of the building. So instead of asking everybody to leave like we do in the past, we are going to leave for about 10 minutes and come back. So a little bit unconventional, but we felt like that might be a better idea than asking everybody to get out of their seats and leave. So with that being said, we're going to go right into roll call. And then, as I said, we will leave and come back in about 10 minutes and get going with a regular meeting. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bracco?
Here.
Councilmember Fugazi?
Here.
Councilmember Marks? Here. Councilmember Hilton?
Here.
Councilmember Ramirez? Here. Councilmember Klein?
Here.
Mayor Bozo?
Here.
Okay, we'll now announce item 2.1, which is the closed session that the mayor referred to. It's a conference with legal counsel for anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D and paragraph 3 of subdivision E of Government Code section 54956.9 and Gilroy City Code section 17A11.3b. Based upon receipt of a written communication from Shankman and Hughes, PC, available for inspection upon request at the office of the city clerk, one case as defendant. So we'll now take public comment on the closed session only. Then I will advise the council about going into closed session. So if there is any, do we have any public comment on the closed session?
No public comment for the closed session.
In that case, it is my opinion that to discuss these matters publicly would prejudice unalterably the position of the city, and I therefore recommend that we go into closed session. Council, we have to vote on whether to go into closed session.
Okay.
We don't need a roll call. We can just
Okay. Can I get a thumbs up?
Everybody?
Closed session?
Okay. The vote is unanimous. We're now adjourning to closed session. We'll be back in, the mayor says, about 10 minutes. Okay.
That's fine.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah.
So I could use this.
Yes.
So you should be able to.
Yes.
And then when you're
Depends on where they
Okay. Yeah.
Let's do it all over again. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, well, I didn't know you were, and then I started calling you, and he said, "Oh, it was me." So she should talk to you. Did you say go? Okay. Okay, yes. Yeah, because I was just trying to figure out. But I have volunteers. People need it out of their kindness of their hearts. Thank you. Thank you so much for being so patient about it. Probably not, because there's so many people. They're probably going to be saying the same thing I am. The more the merrier. Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, it's so nice meeting you. Yeah, you take care. Yes.
Okay, thank you everybody for your patience. Appreciate it. We're going to adjourn. We're going to go back into open session. City Attorney.
Right, and the report out for the closed session is there was no reportable action taken. So now we're going back to item 1, I believe.
Okay, thank you. So before we get going, I want to mention we're going to have a few opportunities tonight for public speaking. As always, there are 2 particular items. One, to speak on items not on the agenda, typical. So there are a few people that have signed up for that. Then we have another item at 10.1 that there are many people signed up for that. So we will be, that speaking time will be limited to 1 minute. And we'll move right into it. So I just want to let you know that in advance. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Klein will lead us, and please remain standing for the invocation after that. Yeah, please remain standing for Pastor Nick Lamau.
Before I begin, I just want to say thank you so much to the council for having me out tonight to the invocation. And with that, let's begin. Gracious and loving God, thank you for this opportunity to come before you in prayer on behalf of our city and its leaders. Today I pray for the members of the City Council, asking that you grant them wisdom and unity, and they make decisions that impact our community. May their discussion be filled with integrity, respect, and a desire to serve with justice and compassion. Grant them patience in times of challenge, courage in moments of uncertainty, and unity when perspectives differ. Help them to listen deeply to the voices of those they represent, to hear the cries of the vulnerable and hopes of the families and the dreams of the young. May their leadership foster a community where every person is valued, every neighborhood thrives, and every future is bright. Strengthen them to build a city marked by justice, kindness, and peace. We pray for our city. May peace, prosperity, and goodwill surround it. Help us work together for the common good, meeting the needs of the most vulnerable, and fostering an environment where all can thrive. We ask for your protection over our community and for strength and encouragement for all those in positions of leadership. Bless them with endurance, clarity, and a heart to serve. I pray this. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Moving on to item 1.4, City Clerk's report on posting of the agenda.
The agenda was posted on Friday, February 21st at 11:30 a.m.
Thank you. Moving on to orders of the day. No orders of the day. Moving on to 1.7, employee introductions. There are no employee introductions. Moving on to ceremonial items. Number 4, and we have a proclamation. 4.1 is a proclamation declaring the month of March of 2025 as American Red Cross Month. And Camille McCormick, would you please come up? Okay, I would like to read this proclamation. Whereas the City of Gilroy has a long history of helping our neighbors in need, American Red Cross is a special time to recognize, American Red Cross Month is a special time to recognize and thank our heroes, those Red Cross volunteers and donors who give of their time and resources to help community members. And whereas these heroes help families find shelter after a home fire, they give blood to help trauma victims and cancer patients. They deliver comfort items to military members in the hospital. They use their life-saving skills to save someone from a heart attack, drowning, or choking. They enable children around the globe to be vaccinated against measles and rubella. And whereas across the country and around the world, the American Red Cross responds to disasters big and small. In fact, every 8 minutes, the organization responds to a community disaster, providing shelter, food, emotional support, and other necessities to those affected. It collects nearly 40% of the nation's blood supply, provides 24-hour support to military members, veterans, and their families, teaches millions life-saving skills such as lifeguarding and CPR, and through its Restoring Family Links program, connects family members separated by crisis, conflict, or migration. And whereas we dedicate the month of March to all those who support the American Red Cross mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Our community depends on the Red Cross, which relies on donations of time, money, and blood to fulfill its humanitarian mission. Now, therefore, I, Greg Bozo, Mayor of the City of Gilroy, on this 24th day of February 2025, together with my colleagues on the City Council, do hereby proclaim March 2025 as American Red Cross Month. Please come down, Council. Please come down. This is important to you, too.
I'm not supposed to go out, but we have been a Red Cross chapter since August 21st, 1917, and I have the certificate. Gilroy has been designated a chapter, and we give the most blood in the whole Silicon, Northern California area. We give the most blood, Gilroy.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Take a couple. Then 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you.
You don't mind. That's okay.
Okay. You mean for the second item?
For 4.1.
Okay. Do we have a speaker for item 4.1?
Martha Martinez, you'll have 3 minutes.
I'll take 1 minute and add my 2 to the other item. No, I want to thank Mayor Bozo and City Councilman for the proclamation of the Red Cross. I'm Martha Martinez, reside at 1020 Ortega Circle, an ordinary citizen of Gilroy, longtime Gilroyan. But right now I want to speak as president of Sunrise Rotary. And Sunrise Rotary has been, as McCormick has stated, we have the largest blood donations for the city of Gilroy. We've been sponsoring the blood drives for the last 5 or 6 years. And the reason that I'm saying came up here is because I would like to entertain the idea that we partner with the city of Gilroy. There is a cost for a facility usage every time we do a blood drive, and that would be nice to be a shared opportunity with the city, especially. We have our next drive coming up on May 31st. It is now scheduled at the Veterans Hall. But we would love to entertain the idea of being partners with you in having consistent blood drives. We usually do them once a quarter with the city of Gilroy. Thank you.
No further speakers.
Thank you. We did have a further proclamation. There was nobody here to receive it, but I just wanted to mention it. There's a second proclamation for the Youth Arts Month, and the Youth Arts Month showcases the positive impact and association between teachers and students at the K through 12 level throughout Santa Clara County. So I just want to make sure we mention that. They'll be picking up their proclamation sometime this week, I believe. Okay, moving on to number 5, council correspondence. This is information only. Nothing? Okay. It's 5.1 is the Civic Center Master Plan Public Workshop Flyer. There's no comment on that, correct? Okay. And moving on to number 6, we have some presentations to council. So 6.1. Annual presentation from the city historian, Toby Eichelberry.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and esteemed members of council.
This is my annual report, back in on the position for city historian. Just want to kind of go back a little bit over what our goal is basically to increase the public awareness of civic history of Gilroy. We're a partner with the City Clerk's Office, Gilroy Museum, as well as the Gilroy Historical Society, in providing supports to inquiries about the city's past, educate and promote Gilroy's rich community heritage through written articles, research, communication, and education. In the partnership with the City Clerk's Office, I've been working with doing laserfish transcriptions of minutes, resolutions, and ordinances. As most of you are aware, a lot of it has points where you can't even be researched online. A lot of it was handwritten and all that stuff. So I've been transcribing all of this into Word docs so it can be easily searched and be able to put together for research purposes and that. So in the past few years, I've actually completed 27% of all of the minutes. So there's about 4,500 minutes there. I've done a little over 1,200 of them. Resolutions, there's 6,000 resolutions. I've done a little over 400, and that's about 7% of them, and about 13% of the ordinances, which there's about 2,000. In total, there's about 16% of all of the history of Gilroy in these three realms. What I've completed so far is years 1868 through 1871 and 1916 through 1951. And basically, with those, or with 106 summary files, which what I've done is taken each of the individual documents, scanned them into 1 year, so you can see 1 year summaries of each one of those results are. So for this last year, I finished 412 documents, which comprises of 8 years, 1916 through 1919, and 1948 through 1951. Some of the highlights from each of the years, just to go through these really quick. In 1916, basically was when we actually decided to change the street lighting system, and we moved over to looking at luminous arc in there versus just gas being actually inside of those lights. For those of you who are aware, the 5th Street Fire Station was actually built, and we actually built it for $6,500 and did it in 3 months. Ordinance number 283 that was prohibiting the hitching of horses to fire hydrants or lampposts at the time. A health officer presented new state laws requiring dairy inspections of all the milk delivered for tests of cows unless they're pasteurized. This was the first step of trying to basically trying to work on the milk deliveries, as well as schools must now have medical inspections of the children, and there must be enforcement of the Vaccination Act. Inquiries were also made at this time with the postal delivery. This was the first year in which they're looking to get delivery of mail to your home. Back before then, you had to go to the post office or pay for somebody to deliver to you. It was also the time of election. Back in those days, it was every 2 years. We actually voted for mayor and all council in every election every 2, versus the switching we have for right now. George Wentz got reelected for his second term, and he only worked for 2 terms. And then in there, some names you'll see in there, one of them like Princeville. 1917, health officers released endorsements of scarlet fever. This was a time when scarlet fever was running rampant through California, and basically we started putting some enforcements of quarantines inside of Gilroy at the time. Basically, the Gilroy Fire Department was broken up between 2 divisions. Vigilance Company was one of them, and this is when the fire chief actually made the design for the emblem that they carry on their shields today. 1917, 1918 were very dry years, and we had a lot of fires these years throughout the city of Gilroy. The Music City Hall roof had winds that came in and tore it apart, as well as the City Hall roof was destroyed partially, and then they had to go back and resolder all of the metal and paint it. At the same time, with the growth, we added 2 new water wells into the city of Gilroy. In 1918, Pickwick Stages granted permit to transport passengers and express packages between Los Angeles and San Francisco. Why is this company important? This became Greyhound buses. William Radke presents a plan to construct a 10-story reinforced concrete building in 1918 to be built, only for it to be put on hold because of World War I. World War I was happening, and basically the National War Industries declared non-war construction must be deferred. On top of that, number one supporter, the mayor, no longer got reelected. H.E. Robinson became the mayor. And after the war, basically, money needed to be focused on other things other than a 10-story building. As well, this year was an ordinance was passed where we had Spanish influenza, and basically were told to wear masks and covering inside of assemblage areas, much different as we have COVID. But it only lasted for 2 weeks because Spanish influenza never really made it down to Gilroy. Made it down to North San Jose and never went any further. So after 2 weeks, the order was rescinded. In 1919, J.M. Hoesch retired after 20 years servicing as the police judge as well as the Justice of Peace for the Gilroy Township. Also in 1919, a special election was held in creation for an ordinance eliminating and regulating the sales of spirituous, malt, and vinous and other alcoholic liquors. This was rejected. What happened next year? Prohibition. Resolution passed to purchase land from Miller and Lux, where we actually expanded our current sewer system. And then this was all done with a special election to help sell bonds to construct the cost of this. As well as in 1919, Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Committee requested permission to erect a monument at the intersection of Monterey and Ayuf Avenue. This never got done because they were designing at the time, it was basically a swimming pool, and it was a lot of fight for the next 2 to 3 years or the design of that pool or whether or not there should be a pool, and then therefore it just got waylaid altogether, and so no memorial was established. As well this year, ordinance was passed prohibiting devices known as punch boards, as you can see in the picture on the screen. These basically were legal gambling devices where you could turn around and pay money to punch holes inside of the cards, which basically would turn around and give you cash rewards and prizes inside the store or gifts in the store. And then basically ended up into the pool halls for additional forms of gambling. So as part of such, as most of the state of California, this got banned. Skipping over the 1948, this was basically the time of our expansion in Gilroy. The first Western addition basically was the first bit of annexed territory we acquired. Hecker Pass, the Miller, the Princeville, the 3rd Street was what was considered this addition. George Millis was reelected for his 5th term as mayor. He went on to serve 6 terms. Councilman Mason was also willing here. He served in another 5 to 6 of those as well. Division of Highways informs Gilroy at this time they wanted to expand Monterey Street from 60 to 68 feet. This actually gave us the divider down the middle of Monterey that we have today, was when we did that expansion. J.H. Jameson was hired to review and assess the police department at the time. Basically, this was what was known at the time where we were a very small police force, half a dozen members, most of them were volunteers, and it was all ran with a city marshal. At the same time, towards the end of the year, another special election was held for the 2nd Western Addition. This was Princeville the 3rd to Miller the 5th Street, was another subdivision that was actually created in there. And believe it or not, we actually had a radio station, KROB, which was here in Gilroy, and their employees basically were put under the employ of the city of Gilroy because at nighttime they was the actual voice behind all of the sheriff cars running around town, and so therefore they needed to be under control. And then they basically were going to add a sheriff's substation to be installed in Gilroy, which they ended up doing. In 1949, that Jameson report was completed, where basically an investigation was hearing to conduct unbecoming of the city marshal, and then basically Ordinance 470 came with the organization which created the city of Gilroy's police department as we know of today. It actually brought in modernization. It actually created titles and positions. It actually set up rules of engagement and that for the police force at the time. Captain E. Cochran of the National Guard unit appeared before council regarding damage done onto Rosanna Street with basically the ingress and egress from the auditorium's property. As those who are not familiar, the Wheeler's auditorium that sits over here actually was rented out by the Army, and they would actually house all of the tanks and vehicles and stuff for the exercises in here, and actually was here in support through the World War II. But afterwards, they kept on running it as a National Guard unit. And as such, we had problems with the tanks, which were knocking down fence posts and everything else in the streets and that. So we had to come up, find a way to make it a little bit more safe for them. And then this was the first year that Chamber of Commerce relinquished decorating of Christmas and handed it over to the city of Gilroy. 1950, the establishment of the Office of the Chief Administration Officer was created. Today, that's our city administrator. Sure. As we said, Mr. Mielis was elected as the sixth term. And then they established the office of the water collector, as we grew the downtown city hall area. And then we annexed the Rents Ranch, which was Hecker Pass, Wayland, Hannah, Welborn. And then the establishment of the Disaster Council, which basically became the Gilroy Defense Council. As most of you are aware, during that time period in the 1950s, this was something that we all needed to have set in place in most of the cities, what to do in case of a major disaster. In 1951, that board was created, and we actually became a charter member of the Disaster Planning Board of the Santa Clara County. And then the Reyes Subdivision, Monterey 7th, Princeville, and 10th Street was actually created. And then a resolution was to decontrol rents. And then lastly, the Jehovah's Witness granted permission to erect a church at the corner of 7th and Chestnut, as well as the Church of Christ erected at 7th and Nigelberry. This was two big, basically, growth opportunities happening inside of the religion sector. As part of some of the other stuff that I worked on, articles that I published, I actually did 2 more articles into the holiday series in which I've done. I did Veterans Day as well as Thanksgiving Day. And then working with the Gilroy Visitor Center, I put together an in-depth article called Passing Through Gilroy, which basically talks everything from the Indigenous Trails period all the way up to the birth of the highways of 152 and 101. I also did a lot of networking this year, mainly with the Monterey Museum, Monterey Historical Park, Novato Museum, Petaluma Library, Cody's Firearms, J.M. Davis Arms and Historical, Collectors Firearms, Petaluma Collective Antiques and Military Mall, as well as a historian inside of Watsonville. I received over 30 different contacts this year. One of them was with our Gilroy Police Department, where they actually had a surrender of weapons that got done, and amongst them was an antique weapon that they asked me to take a look at. Basically, I was able to put together provenance on it, finding it was a Disferter Micolette rifle. Basically, it's a Boda naval ceremonial rifle that's held with their special guard that have. And this was something that was actually produced back in 1788 to 1861, but by looking at the piece itself without taking it apart, definitely looked like it was from early 1800s. And basically, I try to work with GPT not only for this, but also try to find a home for this. This is the reason why I was contacting a lot of the other museums, trying to find a place where we can donate it to. But unfortunately, in its condition, it was non-donatable. Also did research on the Hatfield Lumber Company. Basically, this was a flaxseed farmer from the 1860s and went as far as in the 1900s, where its company came into play. And this was an actually primary important because the company actually produced all of the telephone poles for Castroville. And got some inquiries on Carandaro's station historical marker, as well as after writing the article, a lot of people were asking about hiking trails and historical means outside of Henrico State Park. So one of the ones was Pacheco Falls, and then also working with Bell Station. This year I also worked with Councilman Hilton and City Administrator Forbes in doing third grade class walkthroughs of the City Hall. That was a very fun and enjoyable time. For F25, I'm looking for goals of about 500 documents transcribed, do 2 to 3 more holiday articles, and then I'm going to start up a new series of articles in which basically working on the agricultural aspect of Gilroy, where the first is going to be targeting tobacco with the Chinese labor that occurred, and then also working and expanding my network into Merced, Kings, and Tulare counties, trying to get their history as it relates to Gilroy as well. That's it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, any questions?
I just want to say thank you. And for anybody that wants to give a tour at City Hall, you got to invite him because he just keeps the entertainment, especially those third graders learning about civics. So I appreciate that. We're lucky to have you here to gather all this information for us and to pass it on. Where can people find more information about this that want to go deeper? Like, are you on the city's website? If they have questions about certain eras, how do they get in touch with you?
Yes, you can go to the city clerk's webpage. You'll find links to the city historians page from there. All of my articles are posted on there, as well as some other little facts and that. You can reach out to me directly. I also do a Facebook page managing it as well. But for the most part, people will reach out to me, and I'm willing to come speak and engage with anyone regarding the history of Gilroy.
Any other questions, comments? Well, thank you very much. I'll leave you with one. The fact that it costs $6,500 to build a brick building, Station 55, that we've referred to it now, it's incredible historical perspective. I think a pallet of bricks costs that now. So thank you very much for your historical perspective. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 6.2, public comment by members of the public on items not on the agenda.
Mayor Bozo, I have two speakers, Luis Ramirez and Joe Green. You'll each have 3 minutes. Luis Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I've come here in my capacity as a Parks and Recreation Commissioner. I am very pleased about our new commission. We're enthusiastic, filled with people who really care about the city and want to do some good things for our parks and our recreation. Tonight, I want to talk about a couple issues with respect to how the City Council and the city can work better with the Gilroy Unified School District. Our city is blessed with some wonderful parks, some beautiful schools, 2 new junior high schools, one recently high school, and these are facilities that I would like to see in the Recreation Department. I'd like to see more joint use. I think many people live in Gilroy because we're really happy with the open spaces that we have, the parks that we have, and we'd like to keep them that way. The particular issue I want to talk about today came up recently when a few people came to I got some phone calls and emails that said that there is no longer access to a Roble Park, the open space where the school is, and no longer access at Rainbow Park where Rod Kelly is. I'm aware of why they put those fences there. I support the reason why they put those fences there. Those fences are there for our children's safety, and having 2 kids that have gone through the school system, I support that. I understand that. But there are some concerns from people who know that sharing that space could be a liability issue. The other thing I've heard is that sharing that space could be something that the space isn't taken care of. That's an issue that we face every day in the Parks Department. We're constantly fixing things we don't take care of. But that doesn't mean because of a liability issue and there's a care issue that can't be discussed and compromised in some way to come together so that space is available during non-school hours. That the very fences that protect those children, the very fences that are going to keep out the children that live in those neighborhoods from flying a kite, from playing baseball, from just being in an open field. So I encourage City Council to get together with the school district. I'm sorry I missed the 5 o'clock meeting. I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old I have to deal with on an emergency basis. But anyway, I encourage that. The second thing I want to speak to is a broader issue, but it's the same theme. I was very encouraged to hear Councilman Hilton and Mayor Bozo talk about joint use, something that I was very familiar with when my kids were growing up, and our kids played soccer on those fields, on all the school fields, and access to school facilities. There's a lot of things that I think we have just kind of lost sight of in the last 10, 15, 20 years that I'd like to see opened up again. So I'm very encouraged by that agreement to do, joint use agreement. I'm hoping that they could be open for other things, not just, there's a lot of facilities, a lot we can do with the facilities in school. So thank you for considering that. Thank you for your support.
Our final speaker is Joe Green.
Hi, my name is Joe Green, and I've lived in Gilroy for the last 26 plus years. I've had 5 kids go through the school system, just about every school that's in the district. I've been a coach for the last 4 years at Gilroy High School for cross country and track. I live near Rod Kelly, and I also want to talk about the loss of access to those fields. I also understand the importance of keeping the kids safe. But living near that field, in the evenings we would see adult soccer teams, kind of pick-up soccer using those fields. We saw Little League teams using the baseball fields. Both of those areas are now not accessible for people. And it's just kind of sad to see that happen. For the last 26 years, it seemed to be a shared space, and it was very sad to see that go away. As a coach at Gilroy High School, we used the bike trail extensively. We ran at Gilroy Christmas Hill Park. It's a good place to get some hill training in for cross country. And I know that early on, the Garlic Festival used the kitchens at some of the schools to prep for the Garlic Festival. And I know that a lot of clubs at the various schools benefit from the Garlic Festival. So shared use of facilities, I think, benefits the whole community. And I hope we can figure out a way to make it work for everybody. Thank you.
Mayor Bozo, we have one additional speaker. Our final speaker is Gary Walton. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to return today with a progress update on our project located at 7574 Monterey. I'm pleased to report that we've been making meaningful process in advancing our plans to CSG, and we're optimistic about securing our permits soon. I want to thank the Chief Building Official who arranged a very productive meeting with CSG and our team and architect. During that meeting, we meticulously reviewed 7 pages of comments provided. I want to acknowledge that Hippolyta was especially instrumental in helping us resolve several key issues. His insights and collaborative approach have been invaluable, and his contributions have significantly smoothed our path forward, and hopefully the plan check process will not extend beyond our 4 submittals. I'm also pleased to introduce some important partners with us today. Joining me are Carlos Carrera, who, along with his wife Fernanda, own Petit Couche by Adega, and David Costa, the executive chef. David is a resident of Gilroy, where he lives with his wife Sandra and their young daughter. It's worth noting that Sandra will be contributing her expertise right here in our hometown, opening Petit Couche, further underscoring the local commitment behind this project. A little bit about Adega. It opened in San Jose and won their first Michelin star 10 months after opening in 2015. They opened the Pasteleria in 2019 and Pesticos in 2020 during COVID, and also is a Michelin-rated restaurant. They have 70,000 followers on Instagram, while our recent videos and posts on our social media here have not garnered that kind of response. We have many, many comments about how much the community is looking forward to Petit Couche and the Pasteleria opening here soon. So I'd like to ask if either Carlos or David would like to say a few words.
Good afternoon. I am not a resident of Gilroy, but I've been visiting Gilroy on a regular basis for the last 36 years. Our chef is a resident here, like Gary said, and we are really looking forward to opening Petit Couche in downtown. Really excited. So, and I did bring a few goodies from our bakery, and I hope you'll enjoy them. Thank you so much. Really looking forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 7, reports of council member and their committees. Council member Bracco. Council member Fugazi.
Yes. So from Visit Gilroy, celebrating a birth announcement today. It's not a boy, it's not a girl, it's a website. So if you haven't gone out to it, You're going to want to. It's more than just a website, though. It's a content management system and database. It amplifies Visit Gilroy's relationship with the community, makes it easier for visitors to book overnight stays. Gilroy's impressive inventory of tourism-worthy assets are on full display, including Gilroy Gardens, restaurants, recreation opportunities, wineries, cultural events, and much more. Great attention was given to ADA compliance, and we're proud to incorporate a translation widget that will allow non-English-speaking friends to access the site. Websites are generally thought of as a place to access information, and our new web presence does much more and asserts that Gilroy is a fantastic destination that will inspire and engage as well as inform. So please go out and visit Gilroy.com. Maybe you want to wait till the meeting's over. But more good news also, Visit Gilroy has applied for and has also been accepted to a Visit California Reverse Mexico mission. It's a competitive program. Not all are accepted. And the executive director will travel to Oakland and meet with top travel organizations and journalists from Mexico, where he'll promote group travel, conferences, and travel. Mexico's economy has been growing, and travel from Mexico has been on the rise. So good things happening with Visit Gilroy.
Thank you. Councilmember Marks.
No report.
Councilmember Hilton.
Thank you. From Valley Transportation Authority Policy Advisory Committee, VTA is the congestion management agency for Santa Clara County. The US 101 State Route 25 Santa Teresa Boulevard Extension Project is expected to alleviate traffic that uses local city roads by providing direct connectivity to the US 101 State Route 25 interchange without having to connect to US 101 further north. By allowing local and other traffic in the areas to bypass this 101 bottleneck and connect directly to US 101 State Route 25 interchange, the project is expected to reduce vehicle miles traveled and improve travel times and safety. The project will also provide new bike lanes along this roadway extension, thereby accommodating more direct connectivity for bicyclists in the area. The project needs an additional $2.1 million to leverage federal funding and complete the project approval environmental document phase. If the contract for that phase cannot be signed by March 25th, the project risks forfeiting $2.4 million in federal funds. Cost proposals for the document phase completion are significantly higher than the $3 million available due to the project's location in an area where historic and Native American resources, significant environmental testing, including extensive cultural testing, excavation, and consultants with tribes will be required. The VTA PAC recommended that the VTA Board of Directors augment the 2016 Measure B program in the adopted fiscal years 24-25 budget by $700,000 from the highway interchanges category, appropriate and reallocate $700,000 from the right-of-way phase to the project, and for the US 101-25 Santa Teresa Boulevard extension, and program $1.4 million in vehicle registration fee countywide program funds to the US 101 State Route Santa Teresa Boulevard extension project. That was a mouthful, but just one of the things I really wanted to highlight on that last part, this direction will obviously go to the VTA board next month, is just all the different variation of programs and tax dollars and vehicle registration fees that we have and how they come back here to Gilroy.
Councilmember Ramirez.
No report.
Councilmember Klein.
I want to piggyback Councilman Hilton and what he presented, being part of the mobility. I got to say it right. There's so many boards we're a part of. This is the Mobility Partnership Committee with the VTA. They are having workshops in March, and I just wanted to highlight those. They will be on the website and the newsletter, but they're having an open house March 12th at Gavilan College at 6 p.m. in the Student Center Lounge. And again, this is about the project that's happening between Monterey Road and 25. In April, VTA, in collaboration with the Caltrans, will begin construction of a new US 101 and State Route 25 interchange slightly north of the current interchange. The new interchange will accommodate traffic demands due to rapid growth in commuter, commercial, and recreational traffic that passes through the area. So these meetings will be information that you can draw from to understand what exactly the impacts will be from this project. Also, March 13th, they'll have an open house at the Gilroy Library Community Room, again at 6 p.m. And then a virtual meeting on March 26th at 6 p.m. The Zoom link is on that. They have these flyers that you can download both in English and Spanish, and the meetings will be both in English and Spanish. So just want to encourage you, if you've got questions about it, want to understand why they're going to close Castro Valley Road and Mesa Road, understand how the flow of traffic is going to be, and also the funding and how it gets paid for and the timing. Go to those meetings and you'll get more information. So thanks.
Thank you. And finally, myself, I will talk about one committee that I'm on. I'm on a committee up in the San Jose area. It's called, it's a cities association, the Legislative Action Committee. And this group of people is made up of every single city in Santa Clara County, most of them mayors, vice mayors, or council members. And while it's early, we just only had our very first meeting. While it's early, this committee, what they do is come together and think of local issues that we share in Santa Clara County, and then we work directly with our legislatures up in Sacramento. And so, as I said, so far it's early in the year, but I'm looking forward to having direct contact up with Sacramento and having a unified voice down here in Santa Clara, and even having a voice amongst the Santa Clara folks, being that we're so far down here in South Santa Clara County that I'm looking forward to providing a voice for South Santa Clara County. So stay tuned for further updates on that committee. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, it's the consent calendar. Are there any members of council that are interested in pulling any of the items on the consent calendar? So no items wish to be pulled. So we have, I'll entertain a motion on the consent. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Public comment on the
No
consent?
public comment.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I will entertain a motion of items 8.1 through 8.8.
A motion?
Okay,
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second of approval of item number 8.1 through 8.8 of the consent calendar. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Fugazi?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramirez?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Mayor Bozo?
Yes. Moving on to item number 9, bids and proposals. There are none. Moving on to item 10 and item number 10.1. Consider the adoption of a resolution declaring the intent to transition from an at-large election system to a district-based election system pursuant to the California Elections Code, sections 10010, with the transition taking effect in time for the November 26 and 28 elections. Do we have any ex parte communications from council? And legal counsel, Andy, could you please explain what ex parte communications are for the public?
That means communications with members of the public, or, for example, in a zoning matter with developers or neighbors opposed to it that did not occur at a public meeting.
Thank you. So we have a staff presentation. It will be outside legal counsel today. We'll be doing a presentation.
Yeah, I'll start off if I may.
Please.
Sure, thank you. This item was occasioned first by a letter that the city received, a certified letter in December, and that letter, pursuant to state law, sets off a chain of events in response to it that cities have and special districts have gone through. The letter alleges a violation of the California Voting Rights Act, which is similar but different from the Federal Voting Rights Act, and it claims that the city of Gilroy, in order to stay in compliance with the California Voting Rights Act, must go to districts. Now, this is a highly technical area. It's something that's been happening to a number of cities in Santa Clara County recently. Morgan Hill, Campbell, Santa Clara, and Los Altos, for example, have all gone to districts because they have received similar letters that have invoked the provisions of the California Voting Rights Act. Because of the technical nature of this, we have brought in outside counsel who is standing over there, Mr. Kimon Manolius, who is from the Hanson Bridget law firm, who has extensive experience. In fact, last year he worked with the city of Los Altos on exactly this kind of project. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Manolius to explain how the process works, what the city's options are, what the California Voting Rights Act is, and in general elucidate for us the pros and cons of the possible adoption of this resolution that's in front of the council.
Thank you very much. Oops. Okay, good. Why we're here, as the city attorney just told everyone, is because the city has received a letter on December 16th of 2024, and the letter contained both an allegation and a demand. And the allegation is that there's a violation of the California Voting Rights Act, and the demand is, as the city attorney said, that the city convert from an at-large voting system to a district-based voting system. The Voting Rights Act was enacted in 2002. It was followed by a just amazing amount of litigation where cities and special districts were getting sued for violating the act. There were many, many multi-million-dollar awards against cities and other public entities. So much so that in 2016, the California legislature passed a safe harbor provision for the act. In other words, to give cities or other public districts a chance to make the transition without getting sued, basically. And what drives that is, as the city attorney said, this letter. The letter then has a 45-day deadline, so the city would have 45 days to make a decision as to whether it wanted to go to districts or not. There's been an extension of that deadline negotiated, because that deadline would have run at the end of January, and now it runs at the end of February 28th. And again, to comply with the letter, the city council would have to pass a resolution of intent to go to district-based elections. And just as an aside, an at-large election is what we have now in the city of Gilroy. So in other words, everyone votes for all the members of the city council who are on the ballot. A district-based system is one where the city is divided into districts, and there's one council person per district, and they're voted in that way as such. Okay, so let's talk about the elements of a CVR violation. I'll talk about some options and then a bit about the process and mechanics of districting. The Voting Rights Act prohibits at-large elections under almost always, but under very few circumstances are at-large elections okay under the California Voting Rights Act. And an at-large system is defined as any system that has any at-large component. So what the law really wants is a transition to district-based elections. The second element of a violation is racially polarized voting, and this is a very confusing element, and it tends to set off alarm bells. Racially polarized voting means that folks vote in a jurisdiction in a statistically significant correlation with their race or other ethnic background more than other people do. Okay? So it's just more of a grouping of voters for candidates. It doesn't mean that anyone's racist. It doesn't mean that people are racist at all. What it means is people are voting a little bit more according to race than they do for other things. And if you think about it, that's not unusual. People vote for all sorts of reasons, right? I bet you there are correlations for gender, for socioeconomic condition, for religion, anything you can name. But the legislature has outlawed racially polarized voting by race, right? So that's what the legislature is really concerned with. And then finally, there needs to be some notion of vote dissolution. And vote dissolution is where people's votes get spread so thinly that they can't win. They can't elect a candidate of their choice. An example would be there would be no dissolution if every ethnicity in the city of Gilroy was evenly spread throughout the entire jurisdiction, right? Because then no matter how you broke it up, the percentages within each district would be the same. But that's not how life works, okay? And certainly not in the city here or in any other city for that matter. People tend to be more concentrated in different places, and as soon as those concentrations come up, then if you vote all together at large, then you're making the voting power of minorities less, okay? And this is a very easy case to make, okay, unfortunately. I work with lots of demographers, as you might imagine, because that's what this is. We're going to ultimately draw maps. And the demographers have shared with me that of all the work they've done, there is racially polarized voting in maybe one or two jurisdictions that they've ever seen. And that's in California, that's in the United States of America. It's just the way it is. Okay? People vote in a statistically more significant fashion by race than they do by other things. That's racially polarized voting. That is what the California legislature has outlawed. That can lead to a violation of the act. So again, it's at large, racially polarized voting, and some notion of, again, vote dissolution. And the only way you don't get vote dissolution, again, is if you have folks evenly spread throughout the jurisdiction, which is almost never the case. Okay, so the options, right? The options. The city can fight the claim. The city can transition to districts. And there may be some other options, but they're not very viable. And I'll go through those as well. Okay. Fighting the claim. A very tough lawsuit to win. As I just told you, the standard is low. The correlation for the race of voters is low. The dissolution is low. And you're already in at-large jurisdiction. So it's a very, very difficult case to win, and it's a very expensive case to lose. It just does not require much of plaintiffs.